The giant Korvax ship, the Judgment of Winters, slid out of a black patch of space above the blue and white planet. On the bridge, Admiral Kraz looked at the world below. His scouts said this was an easy job. Humans were primitive. They fought amongst themselves. They had not even learned to travel between stars. Their planet, however, was very useful. It was full of life, water, and minerals. The plan was simple. It always was. First, you talk. You send a message to the whole planet. You tell them they belong to the Korvax Imperium now. They must surrender. Then, you show you are not joking. You pick one of their smaller, crowded cities by the sea. You burn it from the sky. The fear does the rest. After that, the collection begins. Ships go down. People are gathered. Resources are taken. Admiral Kraz gave the order. The message was sent. The words, translated into many human languages, boomed from every speaker and flashed on every screen. People of Earth, you are now property of the Korvax Imperium. Lay down your arms. Prepare for processing. Resistance is death. He waited a few moments. No answer came from the planetary leaders. This was normal. They were probably screaming at each other. He nodded to his weapons officer. The demonstration. Target the coastal city designated Gamma 6. Below, the city glittered in the morning sun. Millions of humans were down there having breakfast, going to work, completely unaware. A brilliant blue-white line of pure energy lanced down from the Judgment of Winters. It was a beam that could crack a mountain. It flew straight for the city's heart. On the bridge, the officers watched their screens. They expected to see a flash, then a great fire, then a cloud of dust and ash. They expected to hear the screaming radio calls, the pleas for mercy. The beam hit. But there was no explosion. Instead, a golden, honey-colored light shimmered into existence over the city. It looked like a giant, transparent bowl had been placed over the buildings. The plasma beam struck this shield and splashed across it, like water from a hose hitting a strong window. Energy rippled out in beautiful, deadly waves, but beneath it, the city stood untouched. The light stayed on. The cars kept moving. Silence filled the bridge of the Korvax ship. Scan again. Kraz barked. His confusion was turning to a cold knot in his stomach. Their sensors had shown no planetary shield technology. None. The humans were supposed to have nothing but old rockets and simple computers. Before anyone could answer, every single screen on the bridge changed. The view of Earth was replaced by simple, white text on a black background. At the same time, on the planet below, the same words appeared on every phone, every television, every billboard and monitor. In every language of Earth, from English to Mandarin to Arabic, the message was identical. It was not a scream. It was not a plea. It was a quiet, firm statement. Welcome to Earth. Your terms are rejected. Asterisk asterisk. The words just sat there, clear and unmoving. Admiral Kraz stared. The quiet on his bridge was now heavy and full of dread. The weapons officer looked at him, eyes wide. Their perfect, simple plan was broken in the first minute. This was not a fractured, primitive species caught by surprise. The shield, the synchronized message, it was all prepared. It was a trap that had been set and waiting. The humans had seen them coming. They had hidden their true strength. And their first act was not to fight back with weapons, but to send a polite, devastating reply. They had not invaded a soft, weak world. They had knocked on a door, and something on the other side had just said, no. The first Korvax dropship settled on the dusty orange ground of the Gobi Desert, kicking up a huge cloud of sand. Commander Vor watched from the open ramp. The place was perfect. It was empty, flat, and far from the human cities they had failed to burn. A good place to land their army, and show these soft creatures what real soldiers could do. They rolled out their walkers, tall, two-legged machines with heavy guns for arms. Squads of Korvax warriors, in their hard, gray armor, fanned out. Their scanners swept the area. They found nothing. No life signs. No energy readings. Just rock, sand, and wind. This world is already broken, Vor reported to the ship above. We will own it within the hour. They started to march. For the first 10 minutes, there was only the sound of their own machines and the howling wind. Then, the sand about 50 meters ahead seemed to boil. It was not sand. It was a cloud of tiny, shining machines, each no bigger than a bug. They moved together like a single creature, a swarm of metal locusts. They flew straight at the nearest walker, covering its viewports and crawling into its joints. The machine shuddered, spun in a circle, and fell over, its systems choked with tiny invaders. Before Vor could understand, the ground under another walker flashed with a blue-white light. There was no boom, only a silent pulse of energy. The walker's lights died instantly. It became a silent, dead statue of metal. An electromagnetic mine, buried and waiting. Ambush! Vor shouted into his communicator. Form a defensive line. But where was the enemy? He saw no human soldiers. Then a sharp crack echoed. One of his warriors grunted and fell. A small, copper-colored piece of metal had punched right through his armor. A simple, chemical-powered projectile. It was a terribly old way to fight, but it worked. The shot had come from a ridge of rocks 200 meters away. He ordered his men to fire at the rocks. They lit up the ridge with energy bolts, turning stone to molten glass. There was no one there. More strange things happened. A new type of microdrone, like a flying speck of dust, zipped through the air. It did not explode. It simply landed on a warrior's shoulder and released an invisible cloud. Within minutes, the warrior screamed. His armor was melting. A thin, greenish liquid was eating through the hard polyceramic shell. The humans had made a bacteria that liked to eat their armor. Then came the traps. A warrior stepped on a pressure plate, and a net made of super-strong wires shot up from the sand, wrapping him up. Another triggered a device that launched not an explosive, but a canister of powerful, blinding dye. The Korvax were stumbling, blinded, their neat formations falling apart. They were not fighting an army. They were fighting the desert. Vor heard the panic in the voices on his radio. One squad leader was screaming, "The rocks! They're shooting from the rocks that weren't there before." Another cried out as a pit opened beneath his feet. Crouching behind his disabled walker, his own armor sizzling from a droplet of the digestive acid, Vor grabbed his communicator. His voice was high and tight with fear, a sound he had never made before. "Judgment! Judgment, do you hear? The beachhead is lost. They are not here. The desert itself is killing us. The sand, the rocks, the air. They have turned the land into a weapon. They are not fighting for this ground is fighting for them." He looked out at the empty, rolling dunes. The wind blew sand over the tracks of his fallen walkers. The silence had returned, but it was no longer empty. It was watching, and it was very, very angry. Admiral Kraz was shaking with a cold, clean fury. The desert had swallowed his soldiers. The planet had said no. Now he would break its bones. No more games. He stood on the bridge of the Judgment of Winters and pointed a clawed hand at the blue world below. "Burn their military to ash," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "Every base. Every shipyard. Every power plant. Wipe their strength from orbit." The great ship hummed with power. Across its belly, ports slid open. Dozens of smaller, sleek destroyers moved into attack positions. A storm of targeting lasers painted the planet's surface, finding army bases, naval fleets, and missile silos. "Fire," Kraz said. 100 lances of green fire stabbed down towards Earth. For a moment, Kraz allowed himself a grim smile. This would end it. Let their deserts and their tricks try to stop this. But then high above, near the silent human satellites, something happened. Satellites the Korvax scans had marked as old weather observers or broken communications hubs suddenly came to life. Their metal skins split open like flower petals. From inside, great sheets of a thin, mirror-like material unfolded, positioning themselves between the planet and the Korvax beams. The energy bolts hit these strange mirrors. Instead of burning through, the light bent and scattered, reflecting harmlessly back into space in dazzling, useless showers of sparks. Other satellites, labeled scientific probes, simply pointed one end at the Korvax destroyers. There was no flame, no energy signature. A heavy rod of pure tungsten metal, sharpened to a point, was pushed out by a magnetic rail. It was just a piece of metal, but it was moving faster than a bullet. It hit a destroyer not with an explosion, but with a terrible crunch of tearing metal, punching straight through the hull and out the other side. Space became a deadly dance. The Korvax beams cut through some of the mirrors. Human kinetic rods smashed into Korvax engines. It was chaos of light and silent, speeding metal. For all their clever tricks, the humans were new to space war. The Korvax had fought for centuries. One by one they adapted. They fired in patterns the mirrors could not block. They used point defense lasers to vaporize the tungsten rods before they hit. Slowly, the human defenses began to fail. A mirror satellite exploded. Then another. A critical military base in a mountain range vanished in a flash of green fire. A cheer began to rise on the Judgment S bridge. They were breaking through. Victory was returning to its rightful owners. Admiral Cross leaned forward. Press the attack. Their final trick is spent. At that exact moment, every screen on the bridge flickered. A new window opened, unprompted. It was not a video. It was a simple file, marked with Korvax symbols for top secret. It had been sent directly into their most secure command network, as if it belonged there. With a growing chill, Cross opened it. The first page showed the precise engineering blueprint of the Judgment's main fusion reactor, with a small, red circle around a tiny flaw in the coolant system. The next page showed the exact frequency patterns of their strongest shields, the codes to lower them. The final file was a text log. It was his own personal journal, his private thoughts from the last 3 days, his doubts and his fury, written in his own coded language. Attached was an audio file. He played it. A human voice, calm and clear, spoke in perfect Korvax. "You have been in our sky for 72 hours, the voice said. "We have spoken your language for 71. You fight a war. We fight a conversation. And we are excellent listeners." Silence swallowed the bridge. The cheers were gone. The Admiral's blood seemed to freeze. They had not just hidden shields or weaponized deserts. While he was trying to blast them, they had been listening. They had taken every signal, every radar ping, every scrambled communication, and they had learned. They had learned his technology, his language, his own private fears. In 3 days, they had understood him more than his own superiors did in a lifetime. He looked at the reactor schematics on the screen. He finally understood the true horror. Humanity's greatest weapon was not a gun or a shield. It was a mind that learned and never, ever stopped. And right now, that mind knew all his secrets. Down on Earth, the giant alien ship in the sky did something amazing. It united the world. Old enemies became friends in an hour. A scientist in America shared a new energy design with a rival in China with a single click. A general in Russia posted a problem online. How do we stop their walkers? Within minutes, an engineer in India, a mechanic in Brazil, and a video game designer in Sweden all sent ideas. A working plan was built by lunchtime. There were no more separate armies. There was just the response. Soldiers in different uniforms fought side by side. A French medic helped a wounded Korean Marine. A group of university students, experts in computer code, were brought into a military bunker not as prisoners, but as captains. They called themselves the Patchwork Legion. Their weapon was chaos, but a beautiful, organized chaos. A farmer in Kenya noticed the alien drones avoided a certain type of thorn bush. He posted a picture. A biologist in Germany saw it, isolated the chemical, and a factory in Canada started making it into a spray by nightfall. But it was not just about guns and machines. Artists joined the fight. Musicians composed songs of defiance. Poets wrote sharp, short verses. These were not just for humans. The hackers, the new captains, found a way into the alien network. They called it the Moralonet, where the Korvax soldiers talked to each other. The humans started broadcasting. They did not send threats. They sent a symphony. They sent rock and roll guitar solos. They sent paintings of human resilience. They sent videos of people rebuilding after disasters, of children laughing, of communities dancing. They sent stories, translated into the Korvax language, about tiny creatures winning against huge monsters through cleverness and heart. On the Korvax ships, the soldiers were confused. Their screens, meant for battle maps, suddenly showed a human ballet. Their ears, meant for orders, heard a blues song about freedom. A story about a mouse outsmarting a lion played in their headsets. A Korvax soldier named Vect, who had never questioned an order in his life, found himself watching a short film. It was about a single tree growing in cracked concrete. It was stubborn. It was beautiful. It made no sense to him. He felt a strange, hollow feeling. Was this the enemy? They were not screaming in fear. They were sharing. Back on Earth, the creativity grew wilder. A toy company used its factories to make small drones. A bakery near a command center kept everyone fed with fresh bread. A social media influencer live-streamed from a rooftop, not hiding, but pointing out the weak spots on a passing alien shuttle to her millions of followers. The Korvax commanders watched their perfect systems break down. A soldier would hesitate before firing, remembering a human poem about home. A technician would be humming a strange, catchy human tune instead of focusing on repairs. They tried to understand this enemy. In the Korvax Imperium, everyone had a place. A thinker thought. A soldier soldiered. A leader led. If you broke their chain of command, they fell apart. But humans were the opposite. You broke their chain, and they made a net. You shattered their army, and 100 smaller, smarter, more creative armies grew from the pieces. You tried to scare them, and they answered with a song. You tried to silence them, and they told you a story. The more pressure the Korvax put on Earth, the tighter and more inventive humanity became. It was not one fist hitting back. It was a million hands, each doing something different, building, coding, healing, drawing, fighting, all at the same time, all towards the same goal. The Korvax could not build a weapon for this. How do you fight a symphony? How do you shoot an idea? They looked down at the glowing, defiant planet, and for the first time, they felt not stronger, but terribly, hopelessly old and slow. Admiral Kraz stood on his broken bridge. Below, Earth shone, whole and unbroken. Around him was only defeat. The desert had beaten his soldiers. The sky had fought back. His own secrets were not his own. His great ship, the Judgment of Winters, was wounded. His pride was shattered. A red, burning anger filled the empty space where his pride had been. They had made a fool of him. Very well. If he could not have this world, no one would. Bring the gravitic spiker to full power, he said, his voice flat and dead. His officers looked at him, shocked. The spiker was a weapon of last resort. It did not shoot at cities. It sent a powerful pulse deep into a planet's crust. It would crack the tectonic plates like an egg. It would make the world shake itself to pieces. It would kill every living thing. Sir, the radiation backwash will cripple the fleet, an officer began. Do it, Kraz roared. Alarms blared. Deep in the ship, a terrible machine woke up. It began to gather a charge that would rip the planet apart. On the bridge view screen, a small blip appeared. A single human ship was rising from Earth. It was not a warship. It was small, smooth, and had no weapon ports. It flew straight towards them. Shoot it down, Kraz muttered. We cannot, Admiral, the weapons officer said. Its flight path is, it is using our own damaged shield gaps. It is coming through the exact holes in our defense. The small ship docked with the Judgment. A request for airlock entry chimed. Kraz, numb with fury, accepted. Let them come. Let them beg. Let them see their doom powering up. The door opened. A human woman walked onto the bridge. She was not young. She wore simple dark clothes, not a uniform. She carried no weapon, only a small, silver data crystal in her hand. She looked around at the tall, gray aliens and their glowing screens, and then she looked at Admiral Kraz. She did not look afraid. She looked thoughtful. Admiral, she said in perfect Korvax. My name is Dr. Eris. I am here to talk. We are past talking, Kraz spat. Your world dies in 10 minutes. I know about the spiker, Dr. Eris said calmly. She held up the data crystal. This is not a plea. It is a choice. Your choice. She slotted the crystal into a console herself. The main screen split into 2 parts. The first file, she said, pointing to the left side. This is a safe path home for your fleet. A map through quiet space. It also contains a formal warning from all nations of Earth. If any Korvax ship ever comes near our star again, we will not be so polite. Kraz scoffed. And the second file? Your surrender terms? Dr. Eris shook her head slowly. No. Look at the second file. The right side of the screen lit up. It showed a star map. It focused on a large, metallic asteroid in Earth's own solar system called 16 Psyche. Then lines drew themselves. The lines showed a path. A slow, careful, gravity-assisted path. The path showed the asteroid being gently nudged. The calculation ended 50 years in the future. The asteroid plunged directly into the sun of the Korvax homeworld. If you activate the spiker, Dr. Eris said, her voice still quiet, we will not fire a single shot at you. We will be too busy saving who we can from the quakes. But the very next day, our engineers will begin this project. We will move that rock. It will take 50 years to reach your sun. When it hits, your star will have a catastrophic event. Your world will burn. We will not attack you. We will just send a gift from our children to yours. The bridge was silent. The only sound was the deep, threatening hum of the spiker charging. Kraz stared at her. He did not see a soldier. He did not see a beggar. He saw a terrible reflection. He saw a calm, patient, frightening mind. Humanity did not think about winning the next battle. They thought about the next century. They fought with a quiet, planet-cracking ruthlessness, but they also fought with a scary restraint. They had the power to doom his world right now, but they chose to offer a map home instead. The promise of future ruin was just a promise. A lesson. He understood everything then. The shields, the desert, the hacked files, it was not just defense. It was a tutorial. A welcome meant to teach one thing: leave us alone. The anger drained from him, replaced by a cold, thick fear he had never felt before. This was not a war he could win. It was a game he never learned how to play. His shoulders slumped. He turned from the screen, from the calm eyes of the human woman. "Power down the spiker," he said, his voice a dry whisper. Then louder to his whole fleet. "All vessels disengage. Set course for the void. Go home." He finally looked back at Dr. Eris. "And send a message to the High Imperium," he said, the words tasting like ash. "Tell them, Earth is not a resource. It is a sanctuary. For monsters we do not understand. Mark this star. Quarantine it. Forever." The human woman simply nodded, took her data crystal, and walked back to her ship. She had not needed to beg. She had only needed to explain. The lesson was over.